That's right.
All right, folks, it's 7 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Wendy and Sam are both excused. I've not heard from Mike, so I don't know where he is this evening. But Wendy and Sam both let us know ahead of time. All right, getting ready to, so we had a little technical snafu, is my understanding, with the minute. So we're still waiting on the minutes from last meeting. So we do not have minutes to approve from just prior to the holiday. We do have in our packet, if people want the minutes from the meeting for the subcommittee. I don't believe we as a larger committee have to take action, but just to let people know that those minutes are there. And we'll hopefully have a fairly efficient meeting tonight. I don't think it's a particularly packed agenda. But we'll start out with the revenue and expenditure report. These were just released on yesterday, I believe. I don't know if we've had a chance to look at them. We can review them again next time if we need, but how's everything looking, Jack?
Good.
Just good?
There is the possibility that executive will go over budget in the next month, not by a lot, but
Mhm.
just because the contracted service assignment, that you should be getting another month's worth of charge there. There's two more payrolls that have to come out and things like that. But no major expenses.
And we're still tracking to look like that a minimal difference from the budget. Is that-
I honestly have not had time to go through the whole budget at
Okay.
this point, because I just got back from vacation yesterday.
Mhm.
Started with that.
Yep.
So hopefully I'll have something for the next time.
Mhm.
I mean, individually, I've met with project managers ongoing
Yeah.
to track their expenditures as against their budget. And I mean, I'm still expecting that we're going to track pretty closely. I mean, I know that, there's a few $1,000s here or there in various departments that might be left over or whatever, but I'm still thinking it's going to be pretty close. But
And there are a few things that are going to be encumbered, which will increase the budget expenses,
Mhm.
even though the funds won't be spent till next year.
yeah, we've still got the issue of the furnace at the fire station, which is still under evaluation, and the radio for the new fire engine, which obviously hasn't been delivered yet, but obviously needs a radio. So, I mean, there are some things, there's a fair number of things in motion still, but we're not at the end.
Question. So maybe this came up before, I forgot, but why is the miscellaneous revenue from the state high? Is that because foods and meals went in there or something?
Miscellaneous, okay, the 239,000, that is primary, the bulk of it, 237,000 of that is actually ARPA funds that came in, and I
Oh, okay.
think that we're gonna move that out of the general fund and put it in the grant funds.
Okay.
Because just for bookkeeping purposes, so that'll probably come out, and it will be much closer to what's anticipated.
Do we have any clue what foods and meals will be like or not?
Rooms and meals actually should be right about on target.
Okay.
But that's something that comes out in December.
Yep.
Or comes in December.
And I did see the tax rate was set. Everybody got the tax bills.
I
So-
hate my.
All right.
Yeah, I do. And I don't usually, but I said there's no sense in holding off, so.
6 months ago, it got lost in the mail on my counter. And I was late. And for the first time in 14 years, I had to pay a penalty.
Well, we thank you for doing that. Are there
It helps.
other questions or concerns? I know,
That's probably why the tax rate itself went down.
Yeah,
Right, I think so.
at least it's gonna have more, you've already outlined some more detail you'll be able to pull together as, you know, as the year closes.
Right,
It's always easy to do when you get closer to the year, because
For folks.
obviously.
Yeah.
There's always purchases in motion.
and you also have a tax collector summary of collections. You'll notice there's a little legend at the bottom. It'll probably take a little bit of, you know, looking at in your spare time to absorb it all, but
Mhm.
gives you an idea of where we're at. Obviously, assuming she has the second issue property tax on here. It would be very low.
Yeah.
All right, if there's nothing else on that, we will move on to human services. There were two departments that I somehow missed for prior agendas, so we're gonna run through them tonight. Which page of our sheet is human services on?
49 and 50.
Okay, well, one, thank you for coming, joining us tonight, appreciate that. We've been focusing on things that change typically, or are different from prior years. This is usually a pretty straightforward one. Is there, so if you want to just run through it real quick for everybody, if you might have questions or.
What I did was level fund it from last year. Hard to tell what's gonna go on this year. Last year was for taxpayers, it was a good year.
I mean, I think in spite of all the concerns about COVID, we didn't see any sort of spike at all
No,
in claims for services or assistance, so.
Huh.
I think the region actually fared pretty well, notwithstanding all the disruption.
Have we seen,
the referrals are going well,
Mhm.
you know, with all the programs out there and the money that's available. I was able to do the referrals to different programs. And I think I'm gonna be able to do that some of next year too,
or
for most of it.
I guess it's not super related to the town budget, but have we seen impacts of, you know, the increased rents in the Upper Valley and impacting citizens in Enfield? How would you describe that?
Rents are high, very
Yeah.
high. We're paying, the town is paying maybe 1,400 a month per rental. For 2 bedrooms. Maybe it's heated, maybe not. That's gonna be more expensive. I think.
With the fuel assistance programs and stuff for this winter seem to be solid.
Yeah,
Generally,
it is.
it's good to hear.
Diane, are you still getting a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for here, people giving to that fund, the fuel fund? Or no?
No.
I mean, in the past, didn't like a lot of community members give to that?
We
fund?
asked for the fuel fund, there's what donators, public, we'll get a check in from the public now and then. when it first started, it was wonderful. But the cans are now, I haven't been able to promote it like I'd like to. I can go ahead, do that again, put the cans out,
I mean, are you
do
still,
more promoting.
do you feel that you're certainly still in need of donations for that fund?
I'm trying to think, I think there's maybe 4,000 in there.
Oh.
2 or 4. I'm not sure. Wouldn't be in here. I could find that out. As far as if you're asking about fuel, if you're thinking I need more money for fuel,
Yeah,
is that what you're
Yeah.
thinking? I can always come back and ask you.
I mean, it says $1,000 on here.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like much.
No, but it wasn't
Not at
used
all.
last year or this year.
Yeah, that's what I'm
I mean, I
saying.
think there are other sources of fuel assistance.
Right, I know, through listening, I know it does that
Yeah,
as well.
so,
I don't know if we're gonna get, yeah, it's gonna be with rent.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah,
Many of the rents include
so,
utilities.
so.
Additional questions? And the level fund is pretty straightforward. Thank you very much, Diane.
Yeah,
You're
thank you,
welcome.
Diane.
Coming in.
I need more money, I'll be back.
All right. The library is next. What page is that on? 53. That's convenient. All right, so as everyone hopefully knows, we're currently between librarians. Shirley's gonna help walk through this budget.
The only thing different was really the salary. We didn't spend as much on personnel last year, but that's will return to normal this year, so. Level funded basically.
You didn't spend it because she left? Is that-
No, this was during COVID when the library was closed. We couldn't see, we didn't have as many people. It wasn't anything to do with it. Melissa leaving, why we had changed last year's budget, that was launched for.
So librarians work without a contract.
Pardon me?
Librarians work on an hourly basis or are they salaried and they have a
The
contract?
part-time people are on an hourly basis.
That's where your big drop is.
Yes.
It's the part-time people,
Yes.
it's not the full-timers.
Right. If there are any questions? Basically, have it. The same.
You didn't seem to buy the books either.
No, not,
Yeah,
and
ours is-
although that is more towards the end of the year too.
But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and
I'll reach out to Vicky to ensure that she knows how to encumber the funds in case she ordered something and it's not coming in until later.
yes, yes, thank you.
Yeah, it looks like the only change is the total salaries are up about 3K. When you combine the personnel and the personnel part-time lines, they're about 3K up.
What is miscellaneous and
Special projects.
That's, you know, like, having present heaven speakers come and things like that. We partner with the historical district sometimes, and just anything that comes up like that for programs, expenses.
I know in the past, like one program that they did was bring in puppeteers. I
Yeah.
forget what the group is, but that was through one of the library programming.
Generally do
Budget one,
it in summertime for the children's program, but we've done several in the past few years. Evening ones, adult ones for, at the community building.
Oh, like the one on wolves. A couple of years ago, you did.
I
one on
can't hear with
wolves.
it. So,
A couple of years ago, you did one on wolves.
yes. And then we did one on the forest, White Mountains Forestry too. There were several.
So surely the postage thing, that seems kind of out of whack, $3. Is the year-to-date actual?
Well, there wasn't actual.
They don't mail a lot every year.
I know.
Been applied.
And I have, that's a librarian's postage. I do all the thank you notes and stuff like that.
So it looks like maybe
And
the
I-
post office box
The
is
PO
not that
box.
big.
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah, it's like the PO box, maybe it's in the
Oh,
wrong.
yes,
Yeah,
that's probably
somewhere
what
else.
it is.
Yeah.
Yes. Have to
Maybe
check
else.
on that. But other than that, there isn't a lot of postage for the library. But that's not, I suppose. A bill for that.
I can check to see if there was, and maybe it got posted to the wrong line.
Maybe.
I guess my only question, how do you think the trustees would feel if it was just straight level funded? And it looks to me like that might work for 22.
Well, isn't it, where, The
When I
only
look at
about
the total, the
Yeah.
21 budget's 176.9 and the 22 is 179.6, roughly,
mhm,
right,
yeah,
ballpark of three.
that's with the differences with the salaries, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
But there's extras in the books, so both used last year either.
right. And that's what I'm really
Yeah.
getting at is.
Yeah.
The salaries are where the change is, but it's sort of been a
And so-
while since we spent all of our,
Books is gonna go down. I think.
No.
Like, Listen doesn't even take books anymore.
We're
Well-
We
still
have a whole
using
bunch of
books.
And they won't even take them.
though some of the subscriptions are going up. Like I know my kids are now
That's true.
using, they max out, I forget what the service is.
But I don't.
But come like the 20th of the month, they're like, I'm out of books
So.
every
Tony's
month.
like, We probably should rename this to books and media.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Because
it
it
said it
really
includes.
is a little
Yeah.
confusing, because the notes do say it's more
Right.
than just books.
Oh, yeah.
Right, I understand.
But that said,
Right.
we do generally come in well below what the budget is on that item.
Well, it's the last 2 years, which are the 2 COVID
Right.
years. The prior year, they were over, so.
Right.
Well,
It's,
no,
the
No,
Prior year's not shown.
no, the prior year
I
actuals,
don't see the prior year, right?
yeah, I think we've consistently been under,
Yeah.
not by that much,
No, right.
not
exactly.
by half.
Well, and the other thing is, you're probably not gonna have a librarian by January 1st, right?
Probably not.
So, I mean, could you level fund the salary line there?
Right.
I don't
Well, I
know.
think
We don't know what,
Go across at 107.
Or you could just give the haircut, you know, make the books and media instead of 25, 22, and then you're there.
Well, as we look at the budget as a whole, this, I want us to have a great library. Like I said, my kids use it
Yeah,
daily.
and the cost of books isn't gonna go down.
Yeah.
People still want their books. I think that maybe we can look at that again, maybe in the next, I'm sure there will be a lot taken out of that in this month.
Yes.
Yes.
So, yeah. Right. Are there any other questions at this review? Shweta?
Nope.
Thank you for stepping in. And doing that. All right, so that gets us, completes the first pass through the full budget. So now, at least what I think we need is, I think we need, well, one, I know you've made most of the changes already. I know there's a couple more that you've got to enter in.
I did not enter the changes from the last meeting.
Right.
Because I left on vacation the very next day.
Yeah,
So I will be giving you an updated one
Right.
for the next meeting.
yes. Is there a quick, if there's a quick way to run a report that's also just the totals by each one on a single page?
I don't know that there is.
Okay. If not, I'll try to generate one, but I think that's a good way, a good table for us to do, which is basically the total expenditures line for any given code. Which would be a great way for our final discussion and where we can identify areas where people would like to make adjustments. But well, I can help do that, but so the sooner we get to start on that, the better. It's like I'm getting at.
Well, when I put the budget worksheet,
Yeah.
to Excel, there is the report.
Yeah.
Page.
But that's got everything.
Yes, but I can go through and subtotal.
Yeah.
And for each department, and then kind of get rid of everything in between.
Yeah,
So that's
and
not a problem.
right, so I think that's a good one page. It also is a good thing to be able to just show anybody in the public, here's the department by department status, as we talk about sort of improving our reporting and communication. That's a one-page summary of the budget that is worth having available to people.
Because you do the budget line by line this way, this is what's gonna have to be available for the public.
Oh,
hearing, though.
yeah, no,
Just so you know.
absolutely. No,
Yeah.
but summary
But yeah.
sheets,
And I do
help
have the
guide
financial
people.
summary page. but,
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's see if I can get that together.
it also makes it easier for us to stay on the same page as we're discussing various items. But so that's where that is. So one item I do want to, so the next item is new positions. There were 3 positions proposed as we went through the budget, mostly changes to existing positions, with one exception. And we need to make decisions on what we're going to do with those budgetarily. So the 3 positions were changing the deputy town clerk from part-time to full-time. Adding a position to DPW for building maintenance and custodial duties, somewhat offset by reduction in contracted services for custodial services. And then expanding the recreation positions to full-time as well. So there's sort of 2 expansions and 1 change. Is that a fair summary, Lisa and Jack?
Yes. I would like to ask that if we cover these to do the deputy town clerk one first, because I think it'll be shorter than recreation,
Okay,
and nobody's here for Janet but us.
Okay.
We get Wendy in and out.
So I guess it's sort of an open question to the committee if everyone just, I want to make sure we got it on the agenda to have a full discussion of the committee's feelings on changing and adding these positions. John, the select board probably as the
We have discussed
administrator, you
these.
probably discussed, do you want to give us a summary of their?
I think
Those
the
discussions.
select board unanimously feels that it's important to bring the town clerk deputy to a full-time position.
Mhm.
There's just too much to do in that office. Also, it is a position that requires some significant training. And we would hate to end up losing a person in that position, and we feel a little undermanned in that case, very undermanned.
Mhm.
And also the idea is if that person does have some time available, that person could be trained to do other things in the office.
Mhm.
And I think the more people we have cross-trained like that, the better off we are in the future.
And so it's the general view of the select board is supportive of the position.
Right.
Very, very
I
much.
mean, just dealing with DPW or the state of New Hampshire Motor Vehicle Department is very complicated sometimes. Someone can't just walk in and do that.
Say the least.
I'm absolutely amazed at the hundreds of people that come in the course of a month with amazingly complex situations that just
Mhm.
take 30, 40 minutes individually to deal with.
Right.
I listen to it all day long, and I come out and I say to you, how is it that people come in with so many complex problems to register a motor vehicle or a boat or something? It's much more time consuming and much more people than I ever would have thought possible, to be honest with you.
And can you remind us what the budgetary impact was?
It's like 8,000.
It was, I think it was about 7,000 actually for the wages themselves, because it's really not a huge jump from the part-time. We were budgeting for 34 hours, 30 hours, regular hours in the office, and 4 hours a week to cover vacations and sick time and things like that. So it was a small jump salary wise, but then the key is benefits. You're gonna have, if you have a family plan, it's about, I'd say $30,000 for benefits. But if you get somebody who needs only a single or two-person plan, it's gonna be less than that.
Yeah, so the range in benefits is from theoretically 0 to 30K. And we budgeted the two-person one.
We're budgeted at the two-person one currently.
Yeah, and what's that dollar amount?
I think it's off the top of my
15
head.
or something.
15, I think, is a one person. It's about 24,000 for a two-person plan. And that's just the health insurance. It doesn't cover all the individual, the taxes.
Right, but that's directly proportional. So between the two budget-wise, it's a 31K change, because we would add 7K to wages, 24K to the benefits line in the budget.
If someone doesn't take the benefits and uses their spouses or something, do they get it? Something?
We have a program where if you don't take the town's insurance, we give you, well, technically it's half the difference between the two plans, maxing out at $3,000. But with the way the insurance has gone up in price, everybody would get, it's $3,000 is less than half the difference. So basically they get $3,000 if they don't take the health insurance. And that isn't to encourage them not to have double coverage, right? Which happened many years ago, and that's how why we instituted it in the first place.
Okay, so, yeah.
So
So,
you can save a lot of money.
Oh, yes.
so really the range is 7K plus the 3K would be the minimum.
Right.
And then the maximum would be 7 plus the 30, but either way, we budgeted 7 plus 24.
And again, it's a partial year, I presume, although maybe not.
Well-
You've got some time between.
Goes on.
Yeah, you never know when you're gonna hire somebody, so. So it's a guess.
That position is currently open.
It is.
Yes, that is.
You want to apply, Dimitri?
And we've had several inquiries, a lot of interviews with respect to the part-time, but it's just not enough. We can't get people over to commit to the training and the commitment without the additional. Incentive. Yeah, because it's a fair amount of work to get certified, go through, be able to do all that stuff legally, according to the state. It's just not, it's just not a part-time job. Yep. It just doesn't fit.
Okay, so comments or from the committee? What's the purview of this group? The view,
No objection.
I am in favor of it.
okay?
This is strictly town clerk. This is strictly town clerk and it's not to be confused with tax collector.
It is the deputy town clerk.
But they did say if there's not enough to do, that the person would be cross-trained to do other things.
I realize that, but
There already is a deputy tax collector though, so the deputy clerk, town clerk wouldn't be doing tax collection. Two separate positions.
And you just say your name for the public record.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm Wendy Huntley. I'm
Yes, I,
tax collector,
right.
deputy town clerk right now.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, Wayne. It's more of just the formality of making sure people are identified. Okay.
So we're gonna have a town clerk and we're gonna have a deputy town clerk and we're gonna have a tax collector.
No, we have, well, yes, we're gonna have one person who is the deputy, who is the town clerk and tax collector, getting one salary. And then we're gonna have one person who is the deputy town clerk. And then we have a
Who
part-time.
does only town clerk stuff.
Yes, and then we're gonna have we have a deputy tax collector who does only tax collection.
So we have 3/4 of the person that does tax collector. Well, you can have
Well,
one
you
person.
will have Wendy who will be doing, she'll be the tax collector and the town clerk. And then we have a part-time deputy tax collector.
So there's 2.5 people covering both functions.
Well,
Quarters.
yes, there would be 2.5 people covering
Both
both functions.
It's I mean, I'm not hearing any objections to including that money in the budget.
Not from here.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now,
Wendy's been getting pretty nervous. It's a lot of work.
We can probably think of other things to cut, Wendy, but you wouldn't be one of them.
All right, so then the next would be the DPW building maintenance / custodial position. I will preface this some with just that part of I know the part of the town moving to this model is driven by what the municipal facilities group identified a couple years ago, which was a severe lack of maintenance within our town-owned facilities. And one of the sort of causes identified was that there was not a person who was responsible for it. And so this is, I assume, continuing to move in the direction of adding very clear responsibility for maintaining the buildings and creating the position to do it.
I mean, I think in the ideal, if you could find somebody, I'm gonna make this up, some retired guy or somebody that comes with some skill sets, painting and cleaning and little minor repairs and that sort of thing, and could do some janitorial stuff, just kind of be your handyman. I mean, I think in the time that it takes to kind of clean and do other things like, painting a room a month or every couple of months, just to keep the buildings downtown presentable. I mean, if you go into the police department, I mean, the walls haven't been painted probably since they were built.
When we walked into the police department for the, in fact, you probably remember this, Gene, we couldn't go into one of the rooms because the doorknob didn't work.
Yep.
Yeah, right. I mean, those are-
Still does not.
Okay, still does not work. But that's a very clear example of, it's not a hard fix.
Not a hard fix. Now, does that mean it's going to be easy to fill? No, but I think the first question is, are you willing or interested in actually maintaining the buildings? Because, if you move down the road of, Whitney Hall expansion or library expansion, you got to be prepared to commit to taking care of the building, right? And so if you're not committed to taking care of the building, like the MFAC committee said, don't even build it. Don't even build it because it's just a waste of money. So that's kind of the balancing act. This is kind of the first step towards taking care of what you own, preserving the public investment that they've made in these buildings and at least keeping them serviceable and fixing the sort of things that you can fix with short money. And you don't have that now. You just don't have that now.
This position reminds me of when I worked in the school system here, well, in Hanover as well. Only with less buildings, they have a facilities person, and that's pretty much all they do is orchestrate and make sure that things are taken care of and addressed.
And part of it's cleanliness also.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had people complain to me about the cleanliness of town-owned buildings.
Oh,
And
that
that's
community
sort of
building,
embarrassing.
yeah.
Yeah, so what was, again, I asked the same question, what was the select board sort of discussions and?
No, I don't remember that we took an exact position on this. My gut feeling is we're probably in favor of it, but I hate to say definitely. You remember, Jack?
Well, I think, but we kind of propose, well, listen, you're gonna spend it here or you're gonna spend it there. If you can't find somebody, then
Yeah.
obviously, you know, the labor market is just kind of difficult and yeah, I wish it were more clear that you could actually create this position, fund it, and actually fill it. I'm not sure that's going to be the case for a while. And so I think that's kind of what we struggle with. And I think the last time we probably talked about it was back when the select board and the board of trustees of the library got together, talked about the larger issue in the backdrop of the NFAP recommendation that we need to commit to at least take care of the buildings and have enough personnel and enough budgetary allocation to maintain what we've got.
I know
or
that
what
the-
we'll build.
Meredith is really gung ho about maintaining and taking care of
Right.
the buildings. Yeah, she brings that up frequently, particularly with regard to Whitney Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty grim way up top.
And it should have been routine.
Okay,
Yes, it
Absolutely.
Yeah, so for this person, remind me, the plan was to not have the contracted services anymore, but this person would do it?
Right. Kind of a
So-
handyman sort of person, they do some cleaning, it doesn't take a long time. And then kind of do these things, sort of things, little painting and washing the woodwork and.
Right, but
fixing
this,
doorknobs.
this one person would clean all the buildings.
Well, basically, I'm thinking the police station and town hall,
Okay.
town library, whatever the contract person does now.
I think probably to start out with, Dimitri,
Yeah.
my feeling would be is you can't possibly have that one person do everything.
Right.
I mean, when you
There's-
first
it's
start
gonna
out
be
this
overloaded.
whole
Right.
picture, that person can do, like Jack said, maybe a couple of buildings and maybe later on at some point, we can add an additional person that would be responsible to the town and not be contracting
Right.
people that,
I mean, ultimately, you probably have the same issue with the community building. I obviously have been in there. That floor could use a good buffing and cleaning and,
what about the
a
kitchen?
more organized approach.
yeah. Yeah.
This is like the first step to that.
Yeah,
And I've been in public finance enough so that you can't take a big leap.
right.
Right.
You gotta do this in steps over a
Right.
period of years and kind of creep up to something that you think is,
So,
finds the balance of what the community wants, what they're willing to pay for and what they're willing to accept.
do you think that not being able to fill it is salary issue or just the general availability of staff?
Well, we haven't even, without some guidance from this group and the select board, we haven't even approached recruiting because we don't have a job to offer. So if we had a sense of what the job was and what the salary was or the pay was, then we can scope out and actually do an ad and kind of recruit and see what the market pressures are.
Isn't there a job description though, somewhere, Jack? I thought I remember seeing some sort of description of the responsibilities that are anticipated for that position.
That could be, Gene. I kind of think.
I can't
Actually do it.
recall.
I don't remember that.
This is quite some time ago.
Okay. That's been before me.
Yes,
Yeah.
it
Okay.
was.
Yeah, maybe we've discussed it in the past. That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
It didn't go very far.
To be fair, can you remind us what the budget impacts were of this position?
Yeah. You know a guy? Hey, he knows a guy.
He's local.
I don't know that I have that off the top of my head, and I didn't bring that with me, unfortunately. I think that the wages came to about 30,000 for the year, but we reduced so we budgeted only for, I think, from May on, because wanted to wait till after town meeting. And we reduced, but kept some of the contracted cleaning service until that point.
Mhm.
So, overall,
Do you remember which page that was?
I think it was under buildings.
Yeah.
One,
I would think so.
yeah, I would. We home maintenance and contracted services.
Nobody
So it's gonna
reminded
be
me I
under
wasn't
contracted,
wearing
so
my
it's contracted
I
services.
saw that.
That was reduced
I didn't
down
wanna
to
sound-
10.5.
Didn't want to be one of
We
those
reduced
people.
that
I just need to be
significantly
reminded.
to account for the fact that we have the budgeted figure for the
Right,
janitor.
okay, so the contracted services was reduced by 25K, 30K was added for wages, so a net total of 5,000 increase,
Plus the benefits.
plus benefits, which again range from the 3K if they take nothing to 30K if
What
they're
we're
full
budgeted
family.
for the 25 or.
Budgeted at 24K, presumably prorated for May through December.
So what was the salary?
Oh, probably.
My recollection is about 30,000.
For a 9-month, roughly 9 months. Sorry, sorry, 7 months of the year. If they were hired in May, and started in June. Right. 7 or 8 months.
So actually, I think I budgeted for the to be hired and working in May.
Okay, so 8
Because
months of.
town meeting is in March, we'd advertise, get them in.
Okay. So an 8
And if we
month.
got them sooner, then we would just not spend the
Right.
contract.
Right. Okay, so what's the view of this position for the committee?
I say yes,
Say yes, Jean? Okay.
yes.
Yes.
Touring the buildings, I'd definitely say yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So again, I'm hearing no objections to including money in the budget for this position. Okay. All right, so the last of the three would be recreation. You're welcome to join us at the table. You don't have to sit aside. I know, I appreciate you coming.
Hello.
So again, just to summarize, this was, well, currently we have 2 recreation directors, each work roughly 10 hours a week. This is combining those 2 positions into one, expanding it to full-time from half-time. And well, that's basically what it is. So John, what was the select board view of this position?
I think we had some qualms about it, whether we were ready to do that and whether we had it organized well enough to do that.
So mixed.
I don't think we were adamantly opposed, but I don't think there was a lot of enthusiasm.
Go from 20 to 40.
So I recall Bridget mentioning, and she has her hand up, that the prior person actually worked more than 10, closer to 20, that she was only able to put in 10. So that we actually went down in hours more recently. So that if you compare it to a couple of years ago, it would not be the 20 to 40, but more like 30 to 40. Is that recollection incorrect?
Are you looking at me, Dimitri?
I can barely hear you.
I said, are you looking at me?
we're looking at you, Bridget.
Or anybody else.
Yeah, so I do believe, and Elisa might be the best one to answer this because, well, I wasn't there then, but I do believe Katie was working about 20 hours at the time. And when I took the position, I was told it was a 10-hour position. So yeah, it did already decrease. And this is looking to obviously add that back on. And just because I don't feel like I'm not trying to overspeak on John, the select board, I don't think it was really a vote. There was some discussion, but it seemed like it was gonna have to come back to
You're
that.
right. It was not an official vote. Absolutely correct.
So, yeah, and I know that this group and select board, we wanted to talk a little more about maybe details and or numbers. So that's why we're here.
Go ahead.
I think this town is kind of on the cusp. And I don't think there's anything almost more important than a good recreation program. It gets all of us out of our houses and meeting and talking to each other and builds community. And I think it's time for us to bite in and support it. Bridget in particular is doing a great job.
Right.
And we need more of that.
So I have one question. Bridget, how many hours are you really putting in? Because I see your name attached to so many different things in town. I'm shocked that you can even do that with 10 hours a week.
Well, yeah, I think it probably averages out. Now, whether I'm perfect at getting every minute down, I can't guarantee that I account for all of the minutes. Honestly, I think this job is something that's really hard to equate when it's such a part-time gig. I mean, I work a full-time job. That doesn't mean I don't sit there and check my recreation emails while I'm working my full-time job, because I hate to see people sitting for hours and hours with no answers and then calling the office and wanting to know what's happening, and it creates a whole thing. So, you know, and that's not the service I want our town to have. I want it to have a good service that people can call and they can get an answer. I can tell you by calling and asking about other salaries in other towns that were similar to ours. I called, did a little research on towns that are, you know, similar in makeup and history and all of that and size. They're all doing the same thing. So many towns right now are going to a full-time recreation position. So I would agree that we're on the cusp, and we're kind of following in what many other places are doing. You know, it brings people in the town. It makes people want to move here, build here, even if they're coming here to maybe dine at our restaurants and shop at our stores. So it adds more than just the revenue a program might bring in, if you want to look at the whole kind of economic potential.
So what are we talking about for hours for the position and an estimated salary and budget?
Which page is recreation on?
Probably just before, probably page 52.
Yep. Very good.
And I do have a question actually right quick, and I don't know who's the right answerer of this. As we talk about kind of finalizing these numbers, obviously at the time when this was made, Ed was still here and he did his kind of Enfield rec budget. And I did the regional rec 2 pieces. So, I mean, my thought is if we're combining the position, that really those 2 probably need to become one either way. I mean, I don't think that it's going to stay regional. Seems to be the discussion since the town handles the money anyway. So, and Dan, I see you nodding your head. So I guess, I mean, and this is likely the time to do that. So maybe that's something that should happen before we close out, I guess I would say, on this budget, or sign off on this budget.
Sure, I think regardless of the decision you make with respect to the full-time equivalent, that obviously these budgets need to be merged to arrive at a single pot, just because things are different now than they were before.
Right. So my point was, in 2019, the budget was 47.6 for both those positions. And then it got but I would say cut substantially in 2020.
Um,
Let's go.
You have
Oh,
to,
that's actual, sorry. But
yeah,
even the budget got cut quite a bit.
are you including the regional rec personnel?
Yep.
At summing the two? Okay.
And does
So-
that count the 10,000 that was coming from Canaan that was cut out?
No, that doesn't
That'd be
show up in the
another
budget. That's a revenue.
Okay.
side.
Okay, just making
Uh,
sure.
So from 2019 to 2020, that budget got cut $5,000. And then to 2021, it got cut another $3,000. So from 2019 to 2021, the overall personnel budget went down by $8,000.
I think my sense, I haven't been here, but my sense, of the days when, was it Kate, the prior,
Mhm.
she had more hours, she had a more concentrated, dedicated effort, and actually, my sense is that she did pretty well with what she had. And I think just by dint of her leaving and fate being what it is, you wound up where you are today.
Yeah,
And
I
we
think the
ended up
idea
with a
is,
new-
some of that was with the separation from being a single rec department, the separating it
Yeah.
into two positions.
Yeah.
uh, Was a portion of that. And I mean,
Yeah.
hindsight being what it is, it didn't work.
didn't work.
Well,
Okay.
And at the same time, we lost $7,500 grant from the Burn Foundation, $10,000 from Kate.
Right.
Which is why, yeah, I agree. You gotta put them together. and It's an Enfield recreation. It's not a regional.
Right.
Right.
Because we're not gonna get paid anything from any of the other towns to do it.
So what you're saying is in 2019, the salary went down, the number of hours worked went down? Because
I don't
my
think we have a
question, I
number of
guess,
that.
really comes to Bridget in rec desk. The program registrations gross for 2019, the information out of rec desk, the software they use to track that was $48,314. So if we were able to produce that with a slightly stinted salary and or hours, why is there not necessarily more potential as we come out the other side of COVID and recreational programming and social gatherings increase? Why can't we assume that if we increase the number of hours, thus increasing the salary, we would also then increase
the
the
income.
revenue?
I think it makes some sense to think that if you increase the activities and you have the fee structure that we've talked about a couple of times with respect to town residents versus non-town residents, that it's perfectly conceivable from my view that you could cover the cost of the program expansion with the revenue received from the programs themselves. Now, that's obviously difficult to guarantee, prove, or quantify, but it's a budget. You could estimate that stuff, extending the summer camp by a couple of weeks, doing the other things. I mean, it seems as though the program's able to produce revenue adequate to subsidize
A big part of it.
a big part of it, a huge
Yeah.
part of it, I think.
Isn't that the goal?
That's
I mean,
right.
it's not, it's a
Right.
town offering its service to its community members.
Yeah,
That's right.
exactly.
So it doesn't have to be a net neutral thing. It doesn't
Exactly.
have to be
No, yeah.
a profit producing thing. It's got to be a justifiable cost associated with the service being provided. So,
Exactly.
and I'm seeing numbers that were, pre-COVID, pretty hopeful. And,
Right.
and just between 2018 and 2019, it went from 35 in terms of gross registrations to 48. And I'm now hearing that there's the possibility that there was a decrease in the amount we were paying someone and how much they were working during that time. So if we bring someone in, I don't know, I guess I'm just at the point where if this is truly going to be a service we want to focus on, not just this year, but for the next 5 years, if we're talking about the master plan of this town, we can't handcuff ourselves to not spending the money to provide that service to the community.
So I guess I'm still asking the question of what are we talking about for a number of hours for this position and the estimated salary and benefits?
Just 35 hours.
It's, I think it's actually budgeted for 35 hours, which is still full-time.
Yeah.
And does include the bennies. We have it in for a two-person plan, I think at this point, which is about 24,000.
74 would have been the grand total. 50 for the salary, and then about 24 for the benefits.
Except that $50,000 was based on a 40-hour week, so if you do
And a full year.
35 hours instead of 40, it comes down a little bit. And so 35 weeks at 35 hours is about 29.5. And obviously the next year being the full year, it would be more. However, we do have to budget, if we budget for the full year, and we have to, because we have to cover, when we do the calculations, it's easier just to budget this one person full-time and not budget all the little part-time people on the what ifs. So that comes to about 43,750 for the full year at 35 hours. And that would cover Bridget in the meantime until somebody comes on.
Elisa, can I just ask, you said 35 hours, why not 40?
That was a decision that Jack made at one point. We were talking about the budget, trying to get numbers down.
One of the
Sorry, Jack.
interesting points that was made,
The very first meeting, everyone was concerned about the salary increases, so
Yeah,
we were trying to
that
find
was one of our little
concessions that-
tweaks.
so one of the interesting points that was made about one of the prior positions that was just discussed was the option of cross-training them. If we took this rec director and put them through a $500 LGI course or a $300 CPRI course, the town could then offer CPR first aid trainings and lifeguard certification trainings. And knowing firsthand how much those trainings cost, if you have a 10-person lifeguard certification class, that's $3,400 in registrations taken in for 1 2-day class. If you want to talk about cross-training, you can also then, you're talking about anybody who's a first responder could come to the town and we wouldn't have to pay for them to go somewhere else necessarily. We can do our own counselors. And it's now all in-house for the cost of $800 for 2 years. So $400 a year.
Can I ask something?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Who are you anyway?
I just wandered in and thought it was really interesting. So no, my name's Matt Young. I'm the vice chair of the Rec Commission. And in my other life, I'm the operations director at the Upper Valley Aquatic Center.
Oh, very good.
He was here a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, but we still didn't know who it was.
Yeah, no, I'm not good at introducing myself.
Sorry,
There's a mask.
We knew, but some of us knew, sorry.
I made an impact on a couple of you.
And then to make a further connection, Tracy Young
Yes.
was on. Is
My
your
father is Tracy
Right.
Young.
Just-
I'm a little surprised he hasn't zoomed into this meeting since he
to make it
retired. I
much
think
further
that's what he
back.
does is just zoom into town meetings and participate and lead, exploratory committees and stuff. So,
He was on the building committee.
that's okay.
Some people would know him.
I've been out of whack for years.
We do have some numbers. We were hoping to have some more time before this decision was going to get made by the budget committee. We didn't even know that we were on the agenda for today, to be honest, until we looked at the agenda. Nothing was said to us. So we do have these beginnings of collecting these numbers from Rec Desk, that software we used to collect the registrations. 2018, 2019, 2020 was a shamble. It was just terrible. And 2021's gotten better, but it's obviously a lot lower because a huge majority of the programming wasn't offered.
What was the number this year?
For 2021, it was, Bridget, you might get it faster. I'm looking at 2021, looks like, correct me if I'm wrong, Bridget, but program registrations through Rec Desk was 30,000.
Well,
She's muted.
Hold on, I'm looking, 1 second. I didn't have that brought up. It is, yeah, if you round up, it's around 31,000 right now.
How much was it in 2019?
2019 had us at 48,000 and change. 2018 was 35 and change. 2020, just for reference, was 12,000 and change. So we've already seen an increase.
Yeah, and I did look at some of the programs, and honestly, I've been in this position, I guess, almost a year, or maybe exactly a year-ish now. And there's still so many pieces of this program that I'm learning. And I think there are ways that it can be used more efficiently that would help us pull these numbers for you really quickly. But you just need someone who has the time. I have yet to find a manual for the program. So it's all calling them and having, phone conference meetings with them. And it's great. It just takes time. And I sadly don't have that.
In 2019, how many hours were between the two positions?
That I'm gonna have to look at it, Lisa, because I wouldn't have any
No,
idea.
no, like, so we had
So my-
Kate at 20 hours, and then we had another person.
See,
who never
I
said
don't
anything.
know that, I don't know what.
See, I don't-
it was 20 hours.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong on this, but my memory is that the number of hours has not changed. They just got split.
Right.
And
When Kate left.
so it's right. So it's always been the same number of hours. But as is often the case, when you split something, you get you have the same number of hours, but you get less because nobody has time to do anything at 10 hours, where somebody prior to that at 20 was getting a lot more done. That's, I could be wrong on that. That's not definitive, but that is my
I
memory.
thought Kate was about 20 hours and then there was another guy who was
No,
here.
she was at 20 and then she wanted to go less. This is my memory. She wanted to go less and only do the regional, not do the Enfield. And so she went down to 10 and we hired somebody else at 10 for Enfield.
So
So the total number of hours was always, again, my recollection, could be wrong, was always the same. Then it got split in half when the regional rec became separate from Enfield rec.
we
Richard is
we
doing the
need
10
somebody,
that Kate did.
Correct. And the other 10 is currently unfilled.
so we paid $47,000 for someone to do 20 hours.
No.
You
No.
also hire
Lifeguards.
lifeguards and
um,
summer
Yeah,
camp
there's some-
lifeguards,
there's
yeah,
camp
yeah.
counselors and that sort
Yeah,
of thing.
there's seasonal people that just come and go.
Right, so all the lifeguards at the
Yeah.
town beach, all
Yeah.
the summer camp counselors are all wrapped into that as
Got it.
well.
And
Right.
this year, there weren't any lifeguards.
Right.
That's
Not this year, not last year, and I believe.
The lifeguard issue this year had nothing to do with Enfield, I can tell you that
Yeah.
firsthand. We, at the UVAC, really struggled to get lifeguards. We were paying people to take the class and they weren't signing up. And that was a problem nationally. Jay Peak has a huge indoor water park. And I have a contact up there because I contacted them and said, are you having problems with this? And half their park was closed for half the summer because they didn't have enough guards to keep eyes on the water.
I
And
know.
also, not that I have to point this out to anyone, but if we're talking about 10 hours a week, we have now been sitting in this room tonight for 1/10 of someone's work week. And we expect that to produce rec programming for a town.
Well, this is the whole journey of faith on a full-time thing, because, you can estimate, you can say, it's easy to say, oh, it'll pay for itself. Oh, the program will grow. Oh,
Right.
the town is ready for it. And you can estimate that on the revenue side, but it's all a guess. And so you really have to have faith that this is what we really want, and we're willing to let it grow. And we're willing to bring somebody and actually develop a program and create the sort of, plan really that Bridget talks about. Because I recognize that both Ed and Bridget have struggled with what was, I'll say, a profound lack of structure really, that really been kind of bootstrapping it.
So 35 the least amount for full-time, 35 hours the least amount.
That's the lowest you can go and be a full-time benefited position. Yes. Let's go to 34, there's no base.
I mean,
And
clearly
then
you
sort
could
of
push
fix
it back
it.
up to 40, but after our first meeting around this table, we made concessions to a lot of salary adjustments out of deference to the concern of those increases.
Well,
You can
20 to
certainly undo that.
35 isn't, that's a pretty good. Going from 20 to 35 gives someone a lot of extra hours.
Yes,
Yeah.
if you can find someone to do it for no benefits.
Well,
Well,
they can have
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I was
Yeah.
talking the 20
Yeah,
to
that's what I
34.
asked you, why.
Yeah. to 34. If you're gonna drop it below 35, sure, we can call it 32 hours a week if we want, with no benefits, but I think you're gonna run into the same problem other positions in this town are having. Without the benefits, you're gonna have a real
That's
hard
why
time
I
finding a
asked
quality
if the
candidate, yeah.
least was 35.
Yeah.
So you
but
can
then
save a
have to
little
retire,
bit on the
which is-
salary, which won't save anything on the benefits, which is
Right.
fine, but.
Again, we were just trying to find some room to find some
I
compromise.
think that was.
Well, and also, a year from now, if all these revenue projections come up, you could kick it up to 40.
Exactly.
Right.
You could
We've got-
also
We've got
drop it back
history at
down.
that point.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
not
But you
totally
got-
unheard of to,
Yeah, but you gotta give
Reduce.
something.
Well, yeah, the
to
problem
your-
is you're gonna lose the employee. If you reduce, you're gonna lose. the
right, no,
employee.
what I'm saying is we can
Right.
change it one way
Right.
or change it the
I
other.
agree.
If it's working, great.
I
If it's
agree.
not working, then
But you need
Yeah.
to
try.
have time to.
And I mean, to be fair, you want to find someone that has some experience and there are college degrees in this, and you're going to have a salary that attracts them and benefits as well. So, and you want them to stay. I mean, I'll tell you, it usually takes about a year for someone to really get comfortable in a position. And the amount of money you have to pay to train somebody, a new person over and over. I mean, that's just a ton of money that kind of goes out the door when you're constantly transitioning. So, yeah.
I don't think anybody would doubt the fact that it is a big lift to come into a community and say, hey, make a recreation program. And all of the background documents and structure that supports it. That's not a small lift, right? Aside from the actual activities that take place, administratively, it's a big lift.
I mean, the first one is probably to have the summer program be a full summer program. Because I think we don't get a lot of kids in the program because it's only for 6 weeks.
I mean, we get,
The
You know-
parents have to find something else in the other 6 weeks or 10 weeks.
and it averaged, I looked at the numbers for this year, and we almost had a full 40 every week. There were maybe one week that was a little low, but that's around a $5,000 amount every week we have it running. Now that doesn't obviously count, people getting paid.
The
But
week talking about that was low, by the way, was the week of July
July
5th through
4th.
9th.
Yeah.
yeah,
Holiday week, which, yeah.
Right.
Completely.
I took that week up. And it's gonna be easier to get people to work if it's a full summer job, of course, for the kids. So, I mean, I can see that as being,
How about winter programs? Would be
Especially for us old people.
we're gonna get you yoga down at the Lakeside Park.
I don't
We'll be all
want
set.
6 a.m. in January.
Except on
I
Tuesdays,
want senior hikes.
So
except
there,
Tuesdays you're with me.
there is a job description that was relayed to the Board of Selectmen.
We all received a copy of it.
You did,
Yeah.
okay, all right. I did want to make sure that that had been received, because that does outline a significant portion of the goals that are collectively both to kind of bring us up to where we need to be, but also the goals of really where we see ourselves going with that position as well. So that job description is kind of key to understanding a lot of the pieces of this conversation as well.
So here's my question, given our expectations for the amount of work this individual has to do, and hopefully the expertise this individual bring in, are 35 hours enough? And maybe there should be a 40-hour-a-week position.
I think coming out of the gate,
Yeah.
we plugged it in at 40, because I don't disagree. But again, we're trying to bring it from where it is to where it ought to be, and trying to work with the budget committee on, well, how do we get there? And what's everybody's tolerance for that? And so, like I say, you can put it up to 40 in about 40 seconds. If you want, we'll put it right back where it started.
It's a big job.
No,
I don't think it's a terrible idea to start at 35.
and I think
Yeah.
The commission is in support of starting with 35, because we also know that the work that one person can put into those 35 hours for that amount of time, by the time we are in this budget cycle for next year, they're gonna have enough information to us to tell us, I don't have enough time to do all of my goals and all of the things that I expect to do, or here's what I'm outlining and I need more time to be able to do it next year, but we'll have someone to give you feedback. You'll have one person. And that's you know, that's another reason to support the 35 hours. But then also allowing that time span to give us more knowledge and feedback and understanding of really where we can be.
I think from a budgetary point of view, assuming you make a decision and then you start the recruiting, you've got seasonal issues too. I mean, I don't think you're gonna.
You're gonna
My
fill
bet
it in
is you're
January.
unlikely to find a rec director in the middle of the recreation summer season.
You won't.
You've got to get on one side or the other of it,
Right.
right? Because somebody's gonna bail, right?
From today, you've got about maybe 2 months before other towns start doing camp registrations.
Right.
And start, and then maybe another month after that before they start hiring for their staff.
And so my point was when we last talked about this, if you decide to only open this position in May after the town has voted on it, you won't see the benefit next year.
You won't.
Because by the time you fill it, the summer is over.
Absolutely.
And they'll be planning for next year. So if we agree to take that approach, we can't take 2022 as an example of did it work or not, right? We have to keep going with it into 2023 to give the full year's chance.
Right.
Because the biggest part of collecting revenue in the summer, you will not have this plan in place, because my gut feeling is if you open it in May, you're not going to have somebody in the seat by July 1st.
So can I ask a question to that? If we make this decision, and let's say I mean you make this decision and say it's 35 hours. There's a job description that can get finalized and it can get posted almost immediately, because I can tell you that with my time, and as Dimitri might have pointed out, the things that I'm involved in, I do not have time to run camp. And that would be a huge loss to this town. And we need to have someone in the chair before midsummer. So honestly, I would like to have an outline and something that's in place so that we can get these positions combined and get something going for as soon as possible, if not immediately the day after town meeting.
The after town meeting is too late to run camp.
Are we doing town meeting in March still? Have we already, we're not moving it, right?
We don't know.
I know. Okay, our hope is March. And I'm not saying that I can't open registration and I can, you know, semi-talk to people like Liz, who's, you know, been helping us, but that doesn't expand the program this year per se, if you don't have somebody there. So as you said, Dimitri, you wouldn't really be able to count the summer, but I also don't want to see no camp happen, because that hurts more families in a time where daycare is hard, childcare is hard to come by. So, you know, there's all of those pieces.
And I mean, the other, well, this sort of gets beyond budgeting and into sort of operations, which are not really our purview. But even if the full time was not approved at town meeting, there would still be 20 hours a week of budget within. So it's not like the position can't be expanded immediately to, you know.
You can certainly work within the carryover budget.
Correct. So it's not like it's, you know, Bridget's 10 hours currently or it's nothing.
Are we currently recruiting for that?
Pending all of this, no.
Well, yeah, that's,
That's
good.
we need to have the position budgeted for the full year and not just the 35 weeks at this point. Because I can adjust the budget based on a full year. Just take Bridget's wages out altogether. Ed's gone, and just have this one position that funds her until we have somebody else new.
It's like, yeah, like
So
she said,
that would adjust the
who's gonna
wages
run
a little
camp this summer?
And then we can get it started a little earlier.
well, I guess what I'm getting at is it's not really about how the administration,
Right.
select board and administration
Right.
choose to deal with that.
Yeah.
Is not really the purview of this group.
No.
It's do we want to do it or
Right,
not?
the select board could decide
We
that
wanna
they want
support
to
it.
start doing it
Right.
February 1st.
Correct,
They don't need an approved budget.
right. Right.
I'll bet there's enough money in the existing budget to market to get through the summer camp season. And meet that expectation,
There is.
notwithstanding the outcome of the town meeting.
Right, so I mean, it's an important discussion, but it's kind of.
Yeah.
outside of
It's outside of our purview.
our purview at the moment. Okay, so.
Right, the
I'm all
decision
for
is,
it.
you want to go up to 35 or not?
Right, so the question, do we want to go from the current 20 hours to 35 hours plus benefits?
Yes.
We have a yes.
Yes.
Straw poll, yes.
Yes.
I'm just sort of on the cusp, and not that I mean, I'm all for recreation and I'm, I think it's great. Not that there's any of it that I can participate in, but I'm just having a hard time with this whole thing because, and I've expressed this to Bridget, I'm feeling like there's no real plan in place. I guess that's what I'm feeling like. I've not seen any sort of written plan as to if we hire a full-time person, this is our plan. This is what we're going to be doing. I know Emily mentioned goals, but an actual plan of activities and what's going to happen. That's what I'm.
Can
that's what
I-
I'm-
As
hiring
feedback
someone
though,
to do.
just like it's, you just explained that it's not the budget committee's purview to decide when that can be posted or anything like that. It is not the recreation commissions or Bridget's kind of purview to outline exactly what a director's goals or exactly what that is going to look like. We have the job description, we have the current things that are in place that we want to continue to be in place, that we want to continue to be implemented, and that need to be carried forward immediately. But to create an actual mapped plan goal, that is a depart, like it's something that actual person would need to come up with their supervisor, sorry.
And I would
Like, that's not
imagine
on-
this person could go and do a lot of what Katie had done before. She had an entire brochure full of offerings for people. And
Well,
while
I
it
guess-
looks a
But
little
again, it is
different
kind of a
because it's
chicken
not-
and egg thing. I mean, on the one hand, if you had somebody that could do it full time, they could have a plan. And so, but you don't have anybody that could actually put together a plan that can be reasonably adopted and executed by a new director.
So here's my other frustration too, and I know this is sort of something personal, but I spent an hour and a half with Katie when she was here. She asked me to meet with her. They're always asking for people's ideas, give us ideas of what you'd like to do. I spent a whole hour and a half, gave her a whole list of things. I provided it to Ed as well. Never, and many of them were not costly items that were going to cost a lot of money to do and they're primarily for seniors, a lot of them. And so I don't know.
But
I'm
is it
just-
possible to develop every single one of those ideas and implement them with only 10 hours available to you?
No, and I wasn't expecting like all of those to be implemented, but I've not even, I never got any feedback about it. There was never any mention about it, and so I just felt sort of frustrated that,
Wasn't one of the last positions you guys tonight just approved? Somebody said, well, if we need to, we can find something else for them to do. But it was the deputy.
yes. the
Yeah,
deputy,
yeah, the
yes.
part-time to full-time,
That
yes.
doesn't seem very definitive in terms of a plan. Yes, they have a job description. Yes, we know what they're gonna do, but if we need some more stuff for them to do, we'll figure that out. We're coming with a job description and a historical and planned programming for the next year. And then when we get a full-time person in place, we can expand that programming or create new programming. But that's gonna be on that director to develop that plan. But we have a job description and we have what we've already done in the past that we're going to intend to do again. Summer camp, theater camp, basketball camp, stuff like that. Senior programming.
I can tell you it's piecemeal too. Jean just, you mentioned some of the program, for senior residents. I talked with someone about a Tai Chi class and it's called a Matter of Balance class, and helping, to prevent falls. I talked to someone at Dartmouth and she's great. And actually kind of along Matt's line, we can have people trained as coaches or someone who can help train other future coaches. And it's a program that we can offer remotely right now, she said, but also we can look at offering and expanding those programs. And I was very clear with her that that's something that I know our community wants. But again, I'm taking that phone call at 2 PM when I'm at my other job. So I can give her some time but then I have to kind of shut my brain off and switch back to what I need to be doing then, and then come back to it. You know, it really stinks to be a part-time person who really wants to see programs grow, and I want to do all the things, and it stresses me out because I don't want to let anybody down, including all of you. But I also want to see a person come in that has that same drive and just makes this community even better for it.
Eric, do you want to finish the poll?
Yeah. I do. What are you feeling about, Shirley?
I think sticking with the 35 would be a good way.
Yeah, I think we're all still at the 35, correct?
Yeah, I guess we gotta go 35, see if it works.
So we have a,
Start.
Yeah.
Step in the right
right,
direction.
so
Is that
what-
good for you, Aaron?
yeah, no, I'm comfortable with that. I do have reservations. I do think we need to expand our parks and rec maintenance and offerings. Well, one of the challenges has been over the last, certainly the time I've been on here, every time something's been said, we're gonna do this, it hasn't happened. So there's definitely some hesitation there. I think this is a case where we need a very staged approach, and part of it's going to be one, marketing, saying like, we took this on and we accomplished it, and it was, successful. And then it's gonna, and I don't think that's been done enough in the past. It's I think it'll take, it's the kind of thing that takes a long time. It's very quick. It's very easy for people to quickly say, hey, that didn't work, when you don't have clear milestones that you're accomplishing. And my only concern in reviewing that job description is it's very administrative and not very hands-on, which again is sort of outside of the purview of this, but it looks as written like a very administrative position. And I view Parks and Rec as a very hands-on job. But that's a
So there's a
personal.
split in there somewhere.
Yeah, but there's no split in the description as written.
And can I just make one quick ask? Because I just want to be fair to whoever comes into the position that, and I 100% acknowledge, because I know I've heard the basketball court piece brought up a few times, and I don't know what the history was or what happened. But I also know from dealing with Canaan, if we just don't put the past onto whoever the new person is and line them up with the expectations of this is what our community wants, and these are the things that have, maybe been discussed. Can you see about working on a plan? Like, I think that's great feedback for them, but it's not going to be their fault for any faults that, if I didn't get back to anybody, and just, I don't know, I feel like that happened to me with taking on Katie's role from Canaan. And I kind of got the slam for everything that didn't happen, but that wasn't me. I didn't do it. So I guess I just, I appreciate the questions. That's what you guys are definitely here for. And I think they're all good and legitimate. And I think that we can make a plan, and I can, at least I have info to give someone too going forward. In my short time here, I can kind of help provide them with, these are future things too to look at.
Also, to your point of things have been said and you didn't see them happen. Pretty sure there wasn't a rec commission meeting from like 2017 until about May of this year.
That's one of the most exciting things, that the rec commission is
Right, yeah.
reinvigorated. And without that clear leadership coming to the town, there's no way this would happen. Because there just wouldn't be the support for it.
Right.
On the back end, like the person would not be successful without the reinvigorated rec commission. So thank you for doing that.
Well,
It's been-
And it is
I'm
important.
I'm personally
Yeah.
invested as well.
Yeah,
I have
no,
a
it's good.
3-year-old and a 2-year-old at home who are gonna go to these schools. They're gonna
Yep.
grow up in this town, just like my wife did. They're gonna participate in these programs. And so, yeah, I'm invested. I
Yeah.
want the best for them. And if I can help do that in
Yeah.
some way, I'm gonna.
But I will also say the old rec commission was invested also.
Right.
What killed their investment was they were told, well, now you're going to be the regional. And they said, wait a minute,
Mhm.
I signed up to do Enfield. I didn't sign up to have meetings in Canaan. And that's why you lost the rec commission.
Sure.
Was because the members said, wait a minute. You can't tell me, I'm a volunteer, and now you're telling me my job just changed. And they said, yeah, my job changed, and I just walked out the door because you decided my job changed. So you you can't even blame it on the old rec commission because they had a job that they were doing at the time and it was working. Yeah, I mean, they had a summer program that was running 35 and 40 kids. And they weren't asked to do, then all of a sudden you get a regional who's saying, well, we're going in a completely different direction. Okay. And the regional said, and the summer program went down 2 years ago because the regional program said, we're going to have one for the older kids. And all of a sudden there's only 15 kids in Enfield because she didn't want to deal with the 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. She only wanted to deal with the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. So that's what happened to the old rec commission, is they said, I'm not playing this game. So, just my opinion.
I can just speak briefly to the job description too, Eric, as you pointed out, a
Are
lot of
we
it.
getting beyond the
Yeah.
purpose of
We are.
this
Yeah, you don't have to
meeting?
justify
Yeah.
that. We do have a we have a clear majority of the group, straw poll in favor of the position. So we'll say, I have one just request, Lisa, as we're moving away from the regional rec programming line, the 08115, the third from the bottom.
And actually, anything that has 08
Yep.
in it is regional.
Yep.
And I would combine that with
Yeah, that's,
something that's not regional.
that's what I'm asking you to do.
I have to consolidate lines on my.
Yep, no, that's exactly what I'm pointing out, is that we should make sure all of those lines are zeroed out.
Yep.
And
Well, move money
incorporated where they belong, which are within our own program. All right,
I have a non-rec related question,
certainly.
just because I'm not sure who to ask, so I figured budget committee and
We'll do this
there's at
as
least
the
one select board
We'll,
member
we'll
here.
move on to the public comment section. And,
Awesome, thank you. Why is our fiscal year January 1st and the town doesn't vote on the budget until 3 months later?
I'm gonna let Jack handle that one.
Welcome to the world of government.
That's right.
Okay,
You know, basically what you have is a carryover budget. So typically, whether it's this town or many other towns, probably literally about 170 towns out of in the state. They do a carryover budget till town meeting, which is kind of set by statute, and they don't implement new positions or new expenditures or capital things until the budget actually gets passed. But it's a carryover budget. The same thing happens at counties, whether they have a fiscal year or a calendar year. The budget process, just because of the length of time it takes to get through all of the processes, there isn't enough time to do it and eclipse the actual fiscal year, the parameters of the accounting period, if you will. So from that public point of view, from forming the budget, reviewing the budget, getting public input, going through the various hearings, winding up to town meeting, at least at the town level, it just takes too long.
you're gonna have 3 months anywhere you put the fiscal year.
Yeah. It doesn't really matter much. I mean, we start the budget 6 months before it gets passed. Just because that's what it takes.
Right.
Just a lot of work.
The only other thing you can do is what Hanover does, which
Yeah.
is they have their town meeting in May and their
Yep.
fiscal year starts July 1st.
Which would be good for seasonal.
Then you'll have a
Not
mini
seasonal.
fiscal year.
Yeah, you'll either have a mini or a
You
maximum.
have to have a half year to do it.
Yeah, because if you have then a 6 month one, well, then you've got an 18-month one.
Right.
So
you
you
do
need to
that.
do that
So,
again.
I was just curious.
Move it.
All right,
It's
I'm done.
it's just the process. It doesn't change the money, it doesn't change much, really.
No, I just, it
Yeah.
didn't, until you explained it, I didn't quite understand
Yeah.
why it would be that way, so,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah,
It actually would be nice to have a May town meeting where we actually had our budget all set and then our year started July.
I would agree with that, only because when you say it doesn't affect anything, it is hard, well, and actually, this could still make it hard, but it is hard if you're trying to line up contractors. And you can't really do it until after town meeting and they were already lining stuff up and then it's too late. It just makes that challenge where, like, I always feel bad for Jim because you try to have things lined up and then, well, they all have jobs and they're booked. So now you didn't spend what you planned because you couldn't get anyone.
Many years ago, we talked about too, that it would be better with the money that we have to pay the school district to the meeting in May too.
Yeah, it would align with their fiscal year too.
Wouldn't it take a warrant article?
Oh, yeah.
Don't we have more money in May than we do in?
I don't know.
I guess, I don't know, I remember.
Sorry.
I didn't mean to open
No,
that.
Yeah, you did.
I tell you,
Yeah.
It's a
Just
legit
don't
budget
ask.
question.
I've been doing public budget for about 25 years. We've always been chasing the sequence
Yeah.
of the fiscal year and the impact of the conversation about changing it to try to align, because you're always chasing it. And
Well, then, if you make it not line up with the calendar year, then your taxes probably become painful.
because, well, that's right. You still have to coordinate with the Department of Revenue Administration and their whole process and statutory things. So there's a series of dominoes to push through to readjust those things. It's just a big, complex thing. And at the end of the day, most people don't know the difference anyway. We know because we live and breathe this stuff, but most people don't give a shit, realistically. Right? Yeah,
Taxes are not changing.
yeah, that's right. You're still gonna pay money.
Yeah, you're still gonna pay the tax.
All right, any other public comments? Seeing none. All right, other business? Anybody on the committee?
Meeting schedule.
Yes, so I've got some meetings scheduled. Next week, I know there's quite a few conflicts, including myself. So I'm gonna propose that we cancel next week's meeting, meet on the 16th with two agenda items. One being, we'll have that table of to guide us on the department by department budgets. And if we want to make adjustments to budgets, we would do it at the beginning of that meeting, with the exception that we would do the salaries, most likely in non-public, have all of the salary discussions at that meeting in 2 weeks. Trying to make sure all 10 of us are here for that, but this is going to be the 2 weeks notice, and it's going to be in 2 weeks that we have that discussion. And if somebody can't make it, that will be. Yes, Bridget, you have your hand up.
I did, because when you say that you're gonna review departments, can an invite just be sent to everybody to be at that meeting so that if the discussion comes up about your department, you can speak to it?
Yes, I already have an email drafted. I was just waiting for tonight's meeting, and it's going up tomorrow along with reminders of encumbering funds.
Awesome.
16
That's-
and 7, right?
That's the 16th at 7. And
I
then
worked a little bit.
we would probably have to have what would hopefully be a short meeting in January, because there'd be adjustments to the spreadsheets to make sure everything happened. That would be what would be put forth to the public hearing, which is already scheduled for February 2nd or whatever the date is. Any concerns with that schedule? Okay, so
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.